The message arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. No emojis, no explanation, just one sentence. Don't come to the wedding. This day isn't about you. I stared at my phone, waiting for the follow-up that never came. No call, no apology, no clarification. Just silence. The kind that doesn't ask questions, only delivers a verdict. In that moment, something inside me went very still. I didn't cry. I didn't reply. I set my phone face down on the counter, walked to the window of my apartment in Portland, and watched the rain slide down the glass like it always did. Calm, predictable, almost polite. I didn't know it yet, but that text had just exposed a truth my family had spent years hiding behind perfect smiles and holiday photos. Growing up, the Whitman family looked flawless from the outside. Neatly trimmed lawns, matching outfits at Christmas, smiling faces framed neatly on the living room wall. Neighbors admired us. Teachers praised us. People used words like lucky and blessed. But inside that house, there was always an unspoken hierarchy, and I learned my place in it very early. My older sister Brielle was the sun. Everything revolved around her. Her laugh filled rooms. Her opinions shaped conversations. When she walked into a space, people noticed. When she spoke, people listened. She was confident, beautiful, and effortlessly adored. I was useful. I was the one who stayed late to clean after her high school parties, the one who apologized when she snapped at relatives, the one who smoothed things over when she forgot birthdays or hurt feelings. My parents never said it out loud, but the expectation was clear. Brielle shined. I carried the weight so she could. By the time we were adults, those roles were so deeply embedded they felt permanent. So when Brielle announced her engagement, no one was surprised that I stepped in immediately. Organizing events wasn't just something I knew how to do, it was my career. I had built my company, Northline Events, from nothing. Long nights, tight budgets, clients who demanded perfection. I thrived under pressure. It was what I was trained to do, professionally and emotionally. I offered to help with the wedding, not as a favor, as a gift, as hope. Maybe this time, I thought, she would see me differently. Maybe my parents would finally look at me with the same pride they reserved for her. Maybe I wouldn't just be the person behind the scenes. Maybe I'd finally belong at the table. But the warning signs were there from the beginning. My mother would call and say things like, "Please don't stress Brielle out. She has enough on her plate." My father would ask about the guest list, the venue, the budget, never once asking how my business was doing or how much time I was putting in. When I mentioned contracts or timelines, they waved it off. "You're good at this," they'd say. "It's easy for you." Easy. Weeks passed, then months. I handled everything. Vendors, negotiations, late-night emergencies. I paid the deposits myself, telling myself it was my wedding gift. I swallowed every small insult, every assumption that my time and money were endlessly available. I told myself this was just how families worked. Until one night, my phone buzzed again. "By the way," Brielle texted, "the florist's final invoice is higher than expected. Can you cover it? Your deposit didn't include everything." "No, please. No, thank you. Just expectation." I typed back slowly, my fingers trembling. "I already covered the deposit. That was my gift. I can't pay more." Her response came immediately. "Don't make this a big deal. It's just money." Just money. Just my money. A few days later, my father called, cheerful as ever. "We're all pitching in for Brielle and Caleb's house fund," he said. "Your share is $2,000. You can transfer it to me." I swallowed. "Dad, I'm not even invited to the wedding." There was a pause. Then his tone hardened. "This isn't about the wedding, Elena. This is about family." That was when I understood something painful and undeniable. I wasn't family to them in the way Brielle was. I was infrastructure. And the text telling me not to come wasn't sudden cruelty. It was simply the truth, finally spoken out loud. When Brielle got engaged to Caleb Monroe, my role was decided before anyone even asked me. I stepped in automatically. That's what I did. Planning events wasn't a hobby for me. It was my profession. Northline Events was my livelihood, built contract by contract, client by client, over years of late nights and impossible expectations. I knew how to make chaos look effortless. And for my family, that skill came with an unspoken price tag: 0. I told myself it was fine. This was my sister. This was family. I framed it as a gift: my time, my expertise, my connections. I said it out loud to make it sound true. "I've got it," I told Brielle over the phone. "Leave it with me." And she did. Completely. I sourced the venue, negotiated the catering, coordinated rentals, built timelines down to the minute. I took calls during client meetings. I answered emails past midnight. I handled vendor hiccups before they ever reached Brielle, absorbing stress so she wouldn't have to feel it. Every decision went through me. Every crisis landed on my desk. At first, there were thank yous, short ones, distracted. Then those faded too. What replaced them was expectation. "Can you call the florist again? Can you see if we can upgrade the chairs? Can you just handle it?" Just. Late one night, my phone buzzed while I was reviewing contracts at my kitchen table. Brielle's name lit up the screen. I expected a question about timelines or seating charts. Instead, her message was casual, almost bored. "The florist's final invoice came in higher than expected. Can you cover it? Your deposit didn't include everything." "No, please. No hesitation." I stared at the words longer than I should have. My chest tightened, a familiar pressure I had learned to ignore. I typed back carefully. "I already paid the deposit. That was my wedding gift. I can't cover more." The response came instantly. "Don't make this a thing. It's just money. Just money." I closed my laptop and sat in the dark, the city lights flickering outside my window. It wasn't about the amount. It was the assumption. The way my contribution had become invisible the moment it was expected. I tried to talk to my mother a few days later. I chose my words carefully, like stepping through broken glass. "She wants me to pay more," I said quietly at the kitchen table. "I've already covered so much." My mother sighed, the same tired sound she made whenever I disrupted the narrative. "Elena, you know how stressed Brielle is. This is her moment. Don't add to it." That was when I realized my stress had never counted. Then my father called. His voice was warm, upbeat. "We're all pitching in for a house fund for Brielle and Caleb," he said. "Your share is $2,000. You can just transfer it to me." I hesitated. "Dad, I'm not even invited to the wedding." A pause, then impatience. "This isn't about the wedding," he said. "It's about family. Don't punish your sister over something small." Something small. My exclusion, my labor, my money, reduced to a minor inconvenience. The final blow came quietly, the way the deepest ones always do. Late one evening, I opened Instagram and froze. Photos from Brielle's bridal shower filled my screen. Smiling bridesmaids, champagne glasses raised, perfect lighting. The event had been held at the garden venue I had personally scouted and secured months earlier. The caption read, "The A-team celebrating the bride-to-be." I wasn't in a single photo, not cropped out, not forgotten in the background, erased. I set my phone down, my hands shaking. Something shifted then, not heartbreak, not anger, clarity. I had spent months pouring myself into a celebration that no longer included me. I wasn't a sister in this story, I was a resource, and resources, once drained, are discarded. For the first time, I stopped asking how to fix it. I started asking why I ever thought it was my responsibility to begin with. 10 days before the wedding, my phone rang just after sunset. I knew it was Brielle before I even looked. I let it ring once, twice. When I finally answered, her voice crashed through the speaker, sharp and breathless. "The band canceled," she said. "The lead singer's sick. They're out. You have to fix this." No hello, no question, just a command. I leaned against the kitchen counter, the cool stone grounding me as she kept talking, words tumbling over each other. Guests were flying in. The schedule was tight. This couldn't happen. I listened in silence, noticing how familiar this felt. Her panic, my expected rescue. "You're the planner," she snapped. "This is your job." Something inside me went still. "I'm not your planner anymore," I said. The words surprised even me. They came out calm, steady, almost gentle. On the other end of the line, there was silence. Then disbelief. "What?" She laughed, sharp and brittle. "Are you serious right now?" "Yes," I said. "I'm serious." Her voice rose, shrill. "After everything I've done for you, you're really going to be this petty? This is my wedding, Elena. You don't get to walk away." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. "I already did," I said. Then I hung up. The click echoed through my apartment, louder than it should have been. I stood there for a long moment, phone still in my hand, heart pounding. I expected guilt, panic, the familiar urge to call back and smooth things over. None of it came. Instead, there was a strange clarity, like a room finally lit after years in the dark. That night, I sat alone at my dining table, stacks of paper spread out in front of me. Contracts, invoices, receipts, 6 months of work, 6 months of my life. I hadn't looked at them like this before, not as evidence, not as leverage, just as obligations. I started at the top and worked my way down. Venue, catering, florist, rentals. Every single contract was signed by Northline Events. My name, my company, my responsibility. My hands slowed as I reached the payment terms. The language was precise, clinical. Final balances due 7 days prior to the event. Failure to remit payment would render the contract void. I read it again, then a third time. If the final payments weren't made, the wedding wouldn't legally exist. It didn't belong to Brielle. It belonged to me. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something sharper, recognition. For months, I had felt powerless, erased, used. And yet, sitting there under the soft glow of the kitchen light, I realized the truth was the opposite. They had never taken my power. I had handed it over. The next morning, I called Sarah, a friend and attorney who had helped me draft my business contracts years ago. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown, the smell of espresso hanging in the air. I slid the folder across the table without saying much. She flipped through the pages slowly, her expression neutral, focused. Minutes passed. Finally, she looked up at me. "Alara," she said carefully, "you're the client of record. Legally, they answer to you." My throat felt dry. "If the final payments aren't made?" "You're within your rights to cancel," she said, "and the deposits would be refunded to your business." I stared at her. "Is it wrong?" She shook her head. "It's not wrong, it's business. They treated your professional work like it didn't matter." I walked home alone, the city humming around me. Traffic lights flickered. People passed me on the sidewalk, unaware that something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about reclaiming something I had been taught to give away without question. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank screen, patient, waiting. For the first time in years, I didn't ask what they needed. I asked what I deserved, and I knew exactly where to begin. 7 days before the wedding, I woke up earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every small sound feel amplified. I brewed coffee and sat at my desk, laptop closed, hands resting on the wood as if I needed to steady myself. This wasn't impulsive. I had slept on it. I had read every contract again. I knew exactly what I was about to do. At 8:57 a.m., I opened my laptop. I drafted the emails one by one. The tone was polite, professional, emotionless. As the client of record for the event scheduled on August 30th, I'm writing to inform you that I will not be remitting the final payment per our agreement. Please consider this notice of cancellation effective immediately. Kindly refund the deposit to the business account on file. No accusations, no explanations, no anger, just facts. I read each email twice, checking names, dates, contract numbers. My cursor hovered over the send button. For a brief second, an old instinct surfaced. The urge to soften it, to call someone first, to ask permission. I ignored it. At exactly 9:00 a.m., I hit send. The emails disappeared into the void, quiet and irreversible. I closed my laptop and took a slow sip of coffee. My hands were steady, my heartbeat wasn't. For a while, nothing happened. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't look at it. I already knew who it was. By mid-morning, the buzzing became relentless. The phone vibrated across the table, lighting up with name after name. Brielle, Mom, Dad, again, and again, and again. Voicemails stacked up faster than I could clear them. Missed calls climbed into the dozens. I let them ring. Around noon, I finally answered. "What did you do?" Brielle screamed before I could say a word. I could hear chaos in the background, voices overlapping, doors slamming, panic spilling through the speaker. "The venue canceled. The caterer, too. They all said you pulled the plug." I leaned back in my chair, the calm in my body almost unsettling. "I didn't pull anything," I said evenly. "I chose not to make the final payments." "You ruined my wedding," she shouted, her voice cracking. This is insane. You're doing this to punish me. No, I said. I'm doing this because you told me I didn't belong. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice cut in, sharp and furious. Ilara, how could you do this to your sister? This is her big day. You need to fix this right now. I can't, I said. The contracts are void. The deposits are already being refunded to my business. You'll give that money back, my father barked, his voice loud enough that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. That money was never a gift, I replied. It was payment for work you never acknowledged. The line went quiet for a moment, stunned. Then Brielle sobbed, the sound jagged and raw. Guests are flying in. Caleb's family is already here. You don't understand what you've done. And yet, I said, my voice firm, there was never room for me. She snapped then, venom replacing tears. You've always been jealous. You're pathetic. You'll end up alone with your spreadsheets and contracts. The words landed. They hurt, but they didn't break me. Maybe, I said softly, but I won't beg for scraps from people who only know how to take. Silence followed. Not rage, not crying, understanding. For the first time, they weren't arguing with me. They weren't negotiating. They weren't dismissing me as dramatic or emotional. They realized this wasn't a tantrum. This was final. I ended the call myself, pressing the red button with a calm I had never felt before. My phone kept buzzing afterward, but the sound felt distant, powerless. I hadn't destroyed anything. I had simply stepped out from underneath it. And without me holding it up, everything they took for granted began to collapse. The day that was supposed to be Brielle's wedding morning arrived quietly for me. I was sitting at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, a paper cup of coffee warming my hands, the low hum of departures rolling through the terminal. Somewhere, my sister was scrambling to salvage what remained of her perfect day. Plastic tables, borrowed chairs, a backyard that had never been meant to hold so many expectations. I didn't picture it with satisfaction. I pictured it with distance. For the first time in my life, I had chosen not to be responsible for the consequences of someone else's choices. My phone was face down on the table, set to silent. I didn't check it. I already knew what would be there. Messages, accusations, maybe apologies that came too late to matter. I watched travelers pass instead, families, couples, strangers heading toward their own beginnings and endings. When my boarding group was called, I stood without hesitation. As the plane lifted into the sky, the city shrinking beneath the clouds, something loosened in my chest. I had expected guilt to follow me, or regret, or fear. Instead, there was space. In Maui, the air smelled like salt and warmth. Mornings began without alarms. I walked barefoot along the shoreline at sunrise, the sand cool beneath my feet, the ocean steady and endless. For years, my life had revolved around urgency. Deadlines, demands, crises that weren't mine, but somehow always became my responsibility. Here, nothing asked me to fix it. I invested the refunded deposits back into Northline events. Slowly, intentionally. I took on clients who respected boundaries, who paid on time, who thanked me without being prompted. But the most meaningful change wasn't professional. It was internal. I slept through the night. I ate without rushing. I answered emails when I chose to. I stopped bracing myself for the next demand, the next call that would pull me back into a role I had never agreed to, but had always fulfilled. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned gold, I remembered something my grandmother used to say when I was young. She was the only one who ever noticed how much I carried, how often I gave without receiving. Your worth, she told me once, isn't measured by what you give away. It's measured by what you protect. Standing there with the waves brushing my ankles, I finally understood her. I hadn't lost my family. They had lost access to me, and that loss wasn't cruelty. It was consequence. Family can wound you in ways strangers never could. They know exactly where to press, exactly what to expect you to surrender. For years, I mistook endurance for love, silence for loyalty, sacrifice for belonging. Walking away taught me otherwise. The bravest thing I ever did wasn't tearing anything down. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't demanding recognition. It was leaving without asking for permission. If you've listened to this story from beginning to end, I want you to know something. If you've ever been the one who carries everything, if you've been the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one expected to give endlessly without complaint, your exhaustion isn't weakness, it's information. And sometimes, choosing yourself isn't abandonment, it's survival. As this year comes to a close, I want to wish you a peaceful, warm, and joyful Christmas, wherever you are in the world. May it be filled with quiet moments, honest boundaries, and the kind of love that doesn't require you to disappear. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. There are many other women, many other voices, ready to share stories that might sound a little too familiar and remind you that you're not alone. Thank you for listening.